Okay, so let's talk about something we literally all do, talking to ourselves. You know, that little voice in your head, the one that sometimes says things out loud? We've all been there. But is it normal? Let's get into the science of it. It starts the second that alarm goes off, doesn't it? That groggy, half-awake argument with yourself. It's probably the very first conversation you have every single day. And yep, the other person in it is you.
And then you've got these little moments all day long. You're just minding your own business, and you catch a reflection, and suddenly you're in this deep philosophical debate about getting a haircut. It's just a classic part of that running commentary that's always on in our heads.
And of course, there's the other side of it. That moment of pure frustration when you can't find your keys, and this just pops out of your mouth right as your roommate walks in. Perfect timing, am I right?
Getting caught talking to yourself can feel so awkward. I think we kind of associate it with being a little unhinged. But what does the science actually say about it? Is this just a weird quirk, or is there something much deeper going on?
So let's just cut right to the chase. It is absolutely 100% normal. We're talking decades of research to back this up. So far from being a sign that something's wrong, it's a totally universal part of being human. Pretty much all of us are doing it all day long.
And there's a name for it in psychology: self-talk. And it's not just random thoughts floating around. No, it's that active narration inside your head. It's you talking to you about your life. Whether you're coaching yourself like, okay, focus on the ball, or just making an observation, wow, this line is long. That's self-talk.
Okay, so if it's universal, where did it come from? How did we all pick up this habit? Well, it turns out we learn it really early on. Let's get into the origin story of your inner monologue.
So, way back in the 1930s, a psychologist named Lev Vygotsky had this amazing theory. He said it all starts when we're kids. First, you see children talking to themselves out loud when they play, right? That's the vocal chatter. What they're actually doing is practicing. They're repeating things they've heard adults say to figure out how to manage their own feelings and actions. And then, as they get older, that voice that was on the outside moves to the inside. It becomes that private, internal dialogue we all have as adults. Pretty cool, huh?
So we know it's normal, and we've been doing it since we were toddlers. But here's the big question. Does what we say to ourselves matter? And the answer is a huge, resounding yes. That inner voice can be your greatest cheerleader or your biggest bully.
You can really think of it as a double-edged sword. On one side, you've got helpful self-talk. It's instructional, it's motivational, it's compassionate. But on the other side, it can get really harmful. It can become overly critical, you can get stuck ruminating on negative stuff, and you can just be constantly blaming yourself. The tone you use makes all the difference. And when it's productive, the benefits are amazing. We're talking increased focus, a boost in your self-esteem, and it even helps you regulate your emotions. For example, there was this awesome study on college tennis players. When they used instructional self-talk, telling themselves things like bend your knees or watch the ball, their focus and their accuracy actually got better.
But the downside is really serious. When that self-talk turns into a habit of being negative, research shows a clear link to anxiety. And when it gets stuck on blaming yourself and just endlessly replaying problems in your head, it can lead to much more intense feelings of depression.
But here's the good news. You are not stuck with a negative inner voice. You can actually become its coach. So let's look at a couple of proven ways you can make your self-talk start working for you instead of against you.
Okay, technique number 1 is called distanced self-talk. And it's pretty simple. Look at the difference here. Instead of saying, I am prepared for this, try using your own name, like you're talking to a friend. So you'd say, Gemini, you are prepared for this. I know, it might feel a little weird at first, but trust me, there's a reason it works.
By creating that little bit of psychological distance, you can actually manage your emotions way more effectively. And it's been shown to be a game changer for reducing stress in those nerve-wracking situations, like giving a big presentation or, walking into a party where you don't know anyone.
Another super powerful tool comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and you could boil it down to 3 steps. First, you've got to identify those negative thought loops. Just notice them. Next, you actively challenge them. Ask yourself, hey, is that thought actually true? And finally, you replace that harsh thought with something a little more neutral or maybe even kind.
So when you really think about it, this chatter in your head isn't just noise. It's a conversation. And the person you're having that conversation with, well, they're with you for the long haul.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's this. The next time you catch yourself chatting away, just pause for a second and remember to be kind. I mean, you would never talk to a friend the way you sometimes talk to yourself, right? And that inner voice is the most constant partner you will ever have.
Look, this conversation in your head is going to be going on for the rest of your life. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, what kind of partner do you want that inner voice to be? Do you want a critic or do you want a coach? Ultimately, that choice is yours.